Mysterious bottomless sinkholes, a mythological creature, and a hidden cave in a Buddhist monastery embedded in the rocks. Dive trips don't get any better than this, so let's unpack the dives and the filming. This is the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, and I'm your host, underwater filmmaker and scuba instructor trainer, Nick de Rooter. Welcome everybody, welcome back to another DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast. A little bit of a different intro. Quick shout out to Dean Kopri. Dean is a composer from Croatia, and I found him on YouTube. I'm a big Tomb Raider fan, so the video games, a little guilty pleasure, and so is Dean, and he makes a lot of amazing rearrangements and reimaginations of the Tomb Raider game theme tunes, and he has also composed for some of the actual games because of his work. I'm a big fan of reaching out to your heroes, and so one day I simply reached out to him and asked if it would be possible to make some music for the DiveSAGA channel, and he did, including this oriental reimagination of the DiveSAGA theme tune, which I think is amazing. You can hear his work in several other episodes, as well as the main theme of the show. He arranged or rearranged that as well. For those who are DiveSAGA All Access members on the YouTube channel, that you'd actually have access to a playlist of Dean Kopri's music for the DiveSAGA channel without any voiceovers, narrations, or other sound effects, which makes for some pleasant listening. So consider actually becoming a DiveSAGA All Access member. You can do that by going to the YouTube channel and then clicking join. Because yes, the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, while you can certainly listen to it on its own, it is absolutely a companion to the DiveSAGA YouTube channel, and of course to an extent also the DiveSAGA Instagram page. And in this episode I would like to break down our last two episodes. One covering the Songhong Sinkhole in southern Thailand, and the other one the Wat Tham Wiman Temple Cave. Personally, I think quickly becoming one of my favorite episodes of all time, just because of how mysterious it actually is. So let's break those down. But first, a quick thanks to our sponsor, In-Depth Magazine. In-Depth isn't about gear hype or clickbait, it's about real dive stories, real explorers, and real underwater science. If you enjoy this DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, you'll probably love the kind of long-form articles and photography that In-Depth publishes. You can find In-Depth Magazine online or in print, and by supporting them, you're helping keep serious dive journalism alive. Surf to www.indepthmag.com and start reading and learning for free today. As mentioned, this episode is all about the Songhong Sinkhole and the Wat Tham Wiman Temple Cave episodes on the YouTube channel. If you have not yet watched those episodes, I would probably recommend watching those first. I will put links to both of them below and then come back here and listen. Otherwise, it might be a little bit more difficult to visualize exactly what this episode is about. I also want to give a really big shout out to the team for those episodes, Mika, Sarah and Arpit, who went out of their way literally by hundreds of kilometers to make this happen. Logistics are not always easy, definitely in the south of Thailand, definitely when you're trying to explore places that are not necessarily very often frequented by other divers when there's no dive centers nearby. So big shout out to them. I don't make these episodes alone. It's always with the help of other enthusiasts and skilled people. Let's start with the Songhong Sinkhole, a deep limestone sinkhole cave system located in southern Thailand. It's one of the most extreme inland dive sites in the country, and it's primarily known, I think, within the technical and cave diving community. Especially after diving there, I cannot really see a purpose for recreational divers to dive there. It's a karst sinkhole, formed, of course, when a cave ceiling collapses. So there must have been a very large underground chamber there. The ceiling collapses, and that then exposes water-filled chambers at the surface. Looks like a really small lake. I think the diameter is around 150 meters, so something like maybe 450, 500 feet. So not massive, and it looks very, very innocent and peaceful from the top. But it is over 200 meters deep. Exploration is still ongoing. People have not found the outer reaches of the sinkhole, which makes it for a very intriguing site, of course. The name Songhong is Thai for 2 rooms. Now, heads up, in this episode, I'm going to probably pronounce a lot of Thai words, and I want to preemptively apologize with our Thai listeners and viewers if I butcher that. That is not out of disrespect, but really out of just inability. But Songhong, 2 rooms, referring to the fact that there are 2 adjacent surface ponds. So 2 sinkholes. It's all part of one sinkhole cave system, but they are connected through a traverse. But they are, at least at the surface, 2 separate little lakes. But they are, as I said, part of a larger submerged cave network. So you can actually do some deep cave diving there, possibly connected to an underground river system that could be kilometers long towards the sea. But that is a hypothesis, and until now, as far as I'm aware, unconfirmed. As far as the initial drop goes, it drops about 100 meters, 330 feet straight down, and then from there it tapers off. But so far it's, as I said, not fully explored yet, which just adds, of course, to the mystery. And there is indeed a traverse from one sinkhole to the smaller one, or depending in which direction you dive, from the small one to the big one, with the roof around 40 meters, so 130 feet. That's also not a very shallow traverse either, right? If you're going into the overhead, you're starting the overhead portion at 40 meters. That is that's already a bit of a challenging dive. Luckily, it's not a very long traverse. So the actual traversal part took maybe 10 minutes or so, and that's at a very nice and slow pace. Nevertheless, 10 minutes at 40 meters, 130 feet, you will probably go into a little bit of decompression. So in our case, we dove our KISS Sidewinder rebreathers. That way we can stay at relatively high PPO2s and avoid racking up deco as much as possible. Then made a few stops anyway in the shallows to make sure we are 100% safe. Water temperature about 26 degrees at the surface, but of course that drops also as you go a little bit deeper. So it is considered a high-end technical cave diving site, commonly used for training. So people do run cave courses there, stage cave, trimix courses because of the depth, of course. And there are lines pre-installed. It has been surveyed as far as possible, or as much as possible, and lines are installed with penetration distances of over 1 kilometer. Not something that I have seen for myself, but that is present. So definitely a site that, should you be in the area, and if you are adequately qualified, definitely link up with some of the amazing cave guides or cave instructors in that region and go explore it. As far as I'm aware, it's been explored since around 2006 and even has had also fatalities. So in 2019, there has been a fatal diving accident involving an experienced diver who unfortunately did not survive the dive. So again, let that at least be a warning for the possible complexity and danger of the site. Nevertheless, because it is so deep and not fully explored, it of course is associated with local folklore, with local beliefs, including legends of the Naga, which is something that started intriguing me. We were always looking for a bit of a story on the DiveSAGA channel, and the fact that it has sort of a remote location, it has that twin lake situation going on, and the fact that then, according at least to local folklore, there is the Naga, this snake serpent-like creature that lurks in the depths, supposedly lives there. That's enough for me to go and have a look. That also prompted me to go and investigate a little bit into the history of the Naga, which is kind of interesting. I, of course, am aware of Buddhism and the Buddha. And when you visit Thailand, there is a lot of iconography that you see everywhere. But indeed, also a lot of iconography of the Naga, of the serpent creature. And I never really questioned what that was all about. It seems to come from Hinduism. So in Hinduism, Nagas are sort of semi-divine beings, indeed mostly associated with rivers and, deep underwater hidden places. They come from Indian mythology well before Buddhism was actually established. But when Buddhism then sort of spread across Asia, it kind of absorbed and reinterpreted these existing mythological figures. And one of the most famous stories, which I do tell in the episode, involves the Buddha being sheltered by the Naga king Mukalinda. Maybe a fun little bit to listen to for a second.
In Buddhist tradition, there is a story told about the days after the enlightenment of the Gautama Buddha. As he sat in meditation, a great storm began to rise. Rain fell, winds intensified, and the world around him turned hostile. But he did not move. From beneath the earth, something emerged. A great serpent, the Naga king Mukalinda. It rose from the depths, coiling its body beneath him, lifting him above the rising waters. Then it spread its hood above his head, shielding him from the storm. Not as a threat, but as protection. In that moment, the Naga was no longer a creature of fear, but a guardian, a protector of something sacred. Not the man himself, but what he had realized. And ever since, the Naga has come to represent something deeper, a presence at the boundary between worlds, between chaos and stillness, between the known and the unknown.
And so it makes perfect sense that, according to local mythology, the Naga might live in sinkholes like this. That's just a really fun story to engage with, in my opinion. The whole episode was shot on the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. Again, sometimes that's just all we can do. I had a little problem with my Marelux housing for my Sony FX3, and I want to give a massive shout out to them because I had just the tiniest piece that broke off on the housing, probably in transportation or something. I contacted them and they went out of their way to make sure that I got that piece delivered to my hotel room in Bangkok as soon as they could. Unfortunately, this episode and the Wat Tham Wiman Temple Cave episode, I could not use the FX3. Luckily, Insta360 always supports us a lot as well. So we were able to shoot qualitative episodes on the 360, which it's a dark environment. Like it's a very much dark, murky sinkhole. And I think the Insta360 Ace Pro always shines in those situations. The second dive site in this little Thai expedition was Wat Tham Wiman. Again, I might be butchering the pronunciation there, but according at least to my research, Wat is temple, Tham is cave, and Wiman is celestial palace or heavenly realm or something like that. So, temple of the cave of the celestial palace. A name could not get any better than that, in my opinion. This one is a really interesting one. I often receive requests from people saying, hey, why don't we ever get episodes where you're just trying to shoot episodes, where you're like trying to find something and it maybe doesn't work out? And this is maybe one of those. So it's a bit of a risk because it doesn't necessarily have all that much diving in the episode, but this is a very good example. What I do often is I tell people, look, I don't need to go to the most famous dive site in the area. I don't even need to go to the best dive site. Take me to the most unusual one. Let's find something that has an element of mystery to it, or a story to it that is just too good not to tell, regardless of the dive quality. And that's when you find these storytelling jewels, like in my opinion, the Wat Tham Wiman temple cave is. There is a document called The Caves of Krabi by Martin Ellis, written in 2009, where they describe Wat Tham Wiman. So they've dived it, and they describe it as: a stream flows through the tower in a wide passage. Near the sink entrance, a 2 meter high, 5 meter wide dry passage leads to a side entrance. Above the stream cave, there is a bat cave, which probably links with the Avans in the stream cave. The monks said the cave was well decorated and had planted a flag at the entrance. Behind the Wat building, there is a hole down to a water-filled passage. Beyond the Wat, there are some steps and an iron ladder, which lead up to a 5 meter long cave. The first recorded visit by cavers was in December 2007 by the OCC and SMCC, Dunkley 1995, Henley 2003b. That's literally all there was. That's all the information there was. And so it is a kind of not a great lead, I would say, but it's enough to suggest that there's a temple, there's a cave, and there's water. So we just had to go and check that out for ourselves. That doesn't mean that these people aren't good explorers or anything like that. Sometimes it's just worth double checking or going to see for yourselves. And since the brief was take me to an unusual place, team leader Mika did exactly that. It's an incredibly overwhelming place. When you first arrive, the Krabi region is known for these very iconic rounded mountains, like I won't call them rocks because they're massive, that sort of dot the landscape. So it's already very impressive. When you arrive at Wat Tham Wiman, there's these sort of buildings that are kind of half into the rocks, and it's littered with statues. There were 2 water holes, the first one being super intriguing. The monks had built a large white snake statue there, so a cobra statue. And coming off of shooting the Songhong episode and doing all the research into the Naga being, and then seeing a snake statue with its tail literally leading down the steps into the cave, that's such a big tell. That's like coming off of that, we were like, that's it. This is going to be it. Of course, we asked for permission from the monks. Mika speaks fluent Thai. He's lived there for several decades. So bless him, because that obviously makes communication a lot easier. And as I mentioned many times, you do need permission to dive these places. I do not advocate for trespassing or for sort of urban exploration on people's property. So he spoke to one of the monks and asked for permission to scuba dive, and they said people had indeed tried, but it's heavily restricted. Again, you could of course take people's word for that, or you can just go and see for yourself. It was a very small water hole, so the idea was, let's let one person have a look, let's not get into each other's way. If we think it's passable, let's film, let's do a little more. But indeed it wasn't. It looks like it could be or could have been, but had a massive sort of sand pile blocking the entrance, not something you can just remove with your hands. So that was a no-go. And then we started looking around and we found the Bat Cave, right, described in the Caves of Krabi document by Martin Ellis. And so that Bat Cave is a lot larger, but it's dry. They mentioned the river flowing through. There indeed looked what could be a river bed, so that sort of checked out. And then in the back of that, because it goes all the way underneath and through the mountain, indeed in the back of that there was another larger but somewhat hidden water puddle. Fantastic, right? Like, these are the type of things, the combination of the monastery, the statues, beautiful Buddha statues, Yaksha statues, Naga statues, so incredibly decorated. Clearly a place that's treated with a lot of love and maybe admiration. we decided, okay, this second puddle is larger, seems a little deeper. If there is anything that goes, it's probably going to be here. So we all geared up and got in the water. It has a very, very thick layer of silt and mud on the bottom. So even when you try, there is generally no way to avoid silting out a little bit an environment like that. And so that's exactly what happened. That's okay, of course. Tie an exploration line and basically start looking. I was somehow fairly optimistic that we were going to find at least something. I don't know why, but I really felt good about it. By the way, to be clear, and this is a question that people have asked as well in the comments, I'm not the one putting line. I'm not the one going first because I'm the one filming. So I know a lot of people like to say, filmmaker and explorer. I do not consider myself an explorer. I think there are people who do failed attempt after failed attempt after failed attempt before they get to score a win, before they get to find a cave that goes. I'm not that guy. I usually show up when the work is done just to film it. In this case, sure, it's a bit more exploratory in nature, even if we weren't the first people to poke around there. But even then, I think handling a camera, filming, you should probably not be the first person poking your head in. So that is there as well. Team leader Mika, who is laying the line and searching. There was overhang for sure, so we definitely found some areas that were overhead, and it did drop to a depth of about, I would say, 4 meters, 12 feet in some places, but we couldn't find anything that really went. We searched for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and it's not a big puddle, so I'd like to think we were pretty thorough, but could not find anything. There were signs of kind of ceiling collapses. A lot of the structures there don't seem necessarily like ancient overflown cave wall, but more like semi-recent. When I say recent, it could still be hundreds of years, but boulders that sort of came down. And so it's still perfectly possible that there's a passage, but it's simply not accessible. But it doesn't matter because it is just... Every year I make a ranking of my best dives of the year, and I'm already thinking whether I can include, if it's fair to include this, because as a dive by itself, it really wasn't all that spectacular, of course, but as a dive location, it ranks so high. It is such a beautiful and mysterious place, and it's so incredibly powerful to like gear up, put on your Sidewinder, and walk past this golden Buddha statue into a cave when the monks are watching. Like, there is something deeply esoteric about that. I will ask though, because we of course did obtain permission from the monks, but let's not all rush there or try to go and dive there. I think at this point you could probably take our word or the author Martin Ellis's word for it that it doesn't necessarily go. I think that the worst thing we can do is start overwhelming these small little temples with dozens of visitors per day. That being said, most Buddhist institutions and temples are super welcoming to visitors. One little tip has very little to do with the episode other than its link to Buddhism, which I did try to sort of put a little bit of Buddhist wisdom in there. But there is the Vipassana Meditation Center in Bangkok. I will butcher this, but the Wat Mahadatu Section 5 offers a meditation class in English every day, and it's free. So if you are in Bangkok and you want to kind of learn a little bit about Buddhism, about meditation, the classes are in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. Maybe look it up. I will try to put a link below. But you can kind of get a free half-day introduction into sitting meditation, walking meditation, standing meditation. And it is free of charge, although donations are welcome. So if that is something you want to learn about or want to explore a bit for yourself, then I would absolutely recommend that. Lastly, I want to touch just very briefly on ADEX, Asia Dive Expo in Singapore. That's just passed. I advertised it several times in previous podcast episodes because they support the DiveSAGA channel and we support them. And it's over. It was a really good and fun edition. I tried to post some things here and there on the socials, and they did too. And I did give 2 talks. I gave a talk on underwater filmmaking in hostile environments, and then a talk on whether AI and social media are ruining the scuba industry. There are podcast episodes on these topics as well. Of course, the talks are a little different, a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more interactive and visual. I will be releasing the one about underwater filmmaking in hostile conditions this coming Thursday, April 23rd. So it's fully recorded video and audio, so you can actually sit down and watch it. The other one is fully available to our DiveSAGA All Access members. So if you are not yet an All Access member, go to the DiveSAGA YouTube channel, click join. That helps the channel in a major way, because you can probably imagine that shooting these types of episodes is super resource intensive, and we can use all the support we can get. Coming up as well in the near future is a sweet series on the caves of Sulawesi. Sulawesi in Indonesia has a beautiful karst cave underground, and I literally just returned from there shooting no less than 7 separate episodes, thanks to Robin Cuesta and local team leader Chacha, on the caves of Sulawesi, both in Baobao and in Muna. Really beautiful in my opinion, and I think we came home with some good footage. So that's currently all being edited, and towards the end of April, the beginning of May, we can start looking forward to the caves of Sulawesi. But definitely also keep an eye on the DiveSAGA Instagram page, where you can also find announcements for that, of course. Thank you guys for listening to the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast. This is what it was originally conceived for, sort of talking a little bit more about the dives that we did on the channel, giving some extra details that maybe don't necessarily fit into the actual YouTube episodes. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, consider following the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, and of course, if you're not yet subscribed to the DiveSAGA YouTube channel, go and do that as well. It's an amazing journey to be on, finding and telling these underwater stories, but I obviously wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for the thousands of people who actually enjoy watching and listening to them. So thank you guys, and I will see you next time.